Jason Luke. I work at Verizon Media, and this 3-day tech symposium was put together in collaboration with your founder, Galen Logan, who is here with us today. But our company, Verizon Media, we transform the way people stay connected, informed, entertained, and communicate. You might probably recognize our brands like Yahoo and Huffington Post, TechCrunch, and Engadget, just to name a couple. And we are officially halfway through our 3 days. Our last session earlier today was on how to promote small business. And tonight we're closing with tips for breaking in and through the tech industry. What are some of the spoken and unspoken things to be aware of? And I have the honor and privilege of introducing Kasiah Timmons, who's a principal product designer for our mobile apps. Kasiah has 14 years of experience in accessibility, project management, and consulting. She has worked in diverse sectors, leveraging her skills in corporate, government, and nonprofit organizations. Since 2006, her professional emphasis has been on mobile computing devices and the apps that drive them, promoting the inclusive approach to product development. Kasiah is currently a principal product designer here at Verizon Media, working in the accessibility lab to ensure our apps are designed with all users in mind, including those with disabilities. Kasiah's passion for accessibility and universal design principles that ensure equal access to technology for all consumers is driven by her own life's journey. Within 2 years of graduating with an electrical engineering degree, she was diagnosed with a visual impairment. Determined to succeed, she persevered through daunting challenges to regain her career in the ensuing years. Kasiah's professional mission is to promote the inclusion of accessibility and universal design in product development so that persons with disabilities have the opportunity to enjoy life to its fullest, both professionally and personally. Kasiah became a certified professional in accessibility core competencies in 2016 with the purpose to more effectively advocate for equal access to technology products and services for all, with an emphasis on promoting accessibility as a responsible business practice. She is a member of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, as well as the National Engineering Honor Society, Tau Beta Pi. Her hobbies include conducting genealogy research, improving her fluency in Spanish language, and inspiring minorities and girls to succeed in STEM studies. And without further ado, I'm gonna pass it over to Kasiah.
Hello, good evening. It is a pleasure to be here. I love the idea. I love learning about Village Connect. And I think this topic, learning and allowing young people to know about how to break into tech, is very important. So I'm gonna get started and kind of talk a little bit about my background and what led me to tech first. As Jason said, I'm a principal product designer. I work on the accessibility team. I work with product teams globally, from Sunnyvale, California to the UK, to Hong Kong and Taiwan. I work with product teams to make sure that our apps and websites are accessible to people with disabilities, especially those that use assistive technologies. Most of the time, when people think of accessibility, they directly link it to people with disabilities, but accessibility has a key word in it. It's called access. And accessibility, it also includes, it's not just about people with disabilities, it's also about bridging the digital divide with seniors, as well as minorities and people in low income and underserved communities. What brought me to the tech industry? As you can imagine, every few months there's a host of different technological innovations that come to market. And a lot of times People of color, people who are low income, seniors, and people with disabilities, they are often left out of it, right? Right now, the big emphasis is Gen Z and interactivity, but there are a lot of populations that cannot handle content, especially on a small screen that flies all over the place and has eye-popping content. There are things that I work with product teams to consider that. For example, even some designs that have animation and flashing that could actually trigger seizures in people. And so I have to work with teams to make sure that our apps and our products are accessible to everyone. And so my career passion is to promote the inclusive approach to product development, because what's been going on, and especially prevalent within COVID and this pandemic, if technology is not designed for everyone, people get left behind. So we're in COVID now, and you have students that are going, online. You have kids with disabilities that are not being served with the technologies that are being offered by public schools. You have low-income students that don't have access to high-speed internet so that they can log on and be successful in their classes. So especially within this environment of COVID, accessibility is a large umbrella that we need to think about, not just for people with disabilities like myself or people that use assistive technologies, as well as with aging seniors who are shopping online and getting their groceries delivered at their front door, as well as kids in schools that don't generally have the means. My journey to tech. It's actually pretty fascinating. I was inspired to first become an electrical engineer when I was in the 6th grade. So tech has been my life for the whole of my career. I have always loved it. I never really thought about getting into the tech industry per se until after losing my vision. And I worked as a biomedical researcher for the VA in Atlanta, Georgia for a few years. And that's when I really started to delve into mobile technology. And this was at kind of the advent of the smart computing phase, where those devices were not, the original iPhones did not have any type of accessibility features on it. And so I was working in a lab at the VA to try to make sure that blind veterans and aging veterans with vision loss could have a phone, a device that they could use to properly communicate. And ever since then, as Jason said in my bio, in 2006, smartphones and apps, this was my career passion because of the fact that you can do so much at the touch of a finger. But at the same time, we have to make sure that there's equal access to those technologies to everyone. And so I, pursued the tech industry, in order to make a difference. And I know that's very cliched, but my road to tech included nonprofit, and it included working in consulting firms. I have a background in accessibility consultant, freelance, but I knew whatever I did, my life's purpose was to make a difference, and to make a difference on a much larger scale. It became to a point where it's not about just making life more accessible to me in the workplace, but it was about, me moving forward, trying to help other people live a happier, productive, and have a greater quality of life. The barriers that I faced, were, they were very unique. I'm a Black female with a visual impairment that has a technical background with an electrical engineering degree and an MBA. Now, with an electrical engineering degree and an MBA, you would have thought my entry into tech, especially accessibility that deals with people with disabilities all the time, you would think, right, that, my resume would speak for itself. But it took 4 or 5 years for me to really break through and to get to a position where I am now with Verizon Media, that I am paid what I'm worth, and I'm valued for what I do. It took a lot of, perseverance there. I heard things that, I know white males didn't hear. I heard things, people told me things that white women didn't hear. Going for the same types of positions, even though I had an electrical engineering background, for one accessibility role, I was actually told that developers, and the interviewer, the hiring manager, he was like the chief operating officer, and he actually just told me that he didn't think developers, would respect me. Mm. So I ended that conversation very quickly by saying, I appreciate your honesty. And by the way, I don't want to be anywhere, right, where I'm not respected, right? I've worked too hard for that. I took off some time after the VA to be a stay-at-home mom. Someone told me I was a dropout, that nobody was going to come to Drexel University to hire me. Told a lot of things that would never have been said to other people. But at the same time, I kept focused on my career goals and my passion and my belief that I was, anyone else is equal. And I don't like people to tell me that I cannot do something. When I lost my vision 2 years after graduating with an engineering degree, they told me that I would never work. Just be satisfied with Social Security. And I'm thinking to myself, you're talking to someone who's already out there in industry, already has a resume to boot, but you're telling me to settle, right? When you wouldn't tell other people to settle, but you're telling me to settle, which, was terribly degrading. So my journey to tech, it was fascinating, but it was tough. When I would go to conferences, I wouldn't see anyone like me. Even to this day, I speak at the largest international conference every year for about the past 6 years. And for most of those years, I'm the only Black on the entire agenda for the entire week. All right. So it's not easy breaking into tech. There's not a lot of Black and Hispanics in tech, but in lies, the opportunities for a lot of tech companies. And I think that this year, with the death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement and just a shift in consciousness within our society, people are starting to become a lot more aware of their unconscious bias, which is generally what I would tell you that I face. Some of it was overt, but sometimes I was passed over by, via unconscious bias. So moving into kind of the subject matter, this was why I chose this topic, because my breakthrough and my thriving in tech, it's unique from the perspective of the fact that I have a disability, but it's also not unique to Black and brown people who have persevered and gotten there and achieved their goals. So tips in breaking into tech, spoken. Now, these are the common ones. The obvious, thing is that technical degrees are golden, right? Our product team, so people that I work with day in and day out, most of them are developers and engineers. They have computer science and engineering backgrounds. And this is not to say that you have to have a technical degree. Tech companies, they need, of course, they have to fill other staff too, graphic designs, HR, user experience design, marketing, creatives. There's a whole slew, of opportunities waiting within the tech world. But the key is that no matter what type of position that you're applying for, you definitely have to have good computing skills. This is tech. Your computer skills need to be sharp because that's just kind of the way our conferences going online, different events that we have. You have to have a pretty good mastery of technology to break into tech. And that's kind of like, something that's well known. Take the time, and this is a pet peeve of mine. take the time to craft a resume that not only best represents your skill set, but it also represents the position and the essential functions of the position. And it answers the question of, A, do you have the experience? If not, can you be trained to do that type of work? On the accessibility team, we are a small team. We're very small. I am the only one in the company for Verizon Media that has my job description. Working in accessibility, my focus is on mobile apps. There are times when I have to hire contractors and interns to come in and work with our team. And when I'm looking over resumes, you know, I'm not going to dig and try to find the hidden gem to let me know that you're qualified. You have to let me know that I'm not going to extrapolate it. I'm not going to assume. I'm not going to guess. And if I don't see what I want to see, right, within kind of that summary, the couple of paragraphs to keep my attention going, you know, if I have a stack of resumes to get to, you know, I may come back to it, but I'm going to move on. It is very, very important. And I'm speaking from personal experience. I had a situation recently with a family member. I asked them, hey, you know, have you heard back from that position? And then come to find out their resume never even made it up to the hiring manager, because why? The resume. I took one look at it and I was frustrated myself. And I told them, look, don't waste anybody's time with a generic resume. Okay, so as a hiring manager, especially within tech is very dynamic. We have challenges thrown at us left and right each and every day. So if you're going to come and apply for a tech job, make sure that you're catering that resume to that particular experience so that the essential functions of the job, it gets highlighted, not just your skills, but that you know what the job entails. And if I don't see that from a resume, then I'm not going to take your candidacy serious. Okay. Additionally, with respect to the resumes, I know some people, they think that they have to go and, you know, pay money to get someone to craft their resume. There are a lot of resume writing guides online. It just takes time and attention to learn. It's a skill in learning how to sell yourself on paper. Also, and this is very important for young people, there are sometimes you have to be willing to get your foot into the door. Okay, there may be, you know, a position out there that, hey, you just gotta have. Okay, that's the one. I want that position, right? Sometimes, especially when you're just starting out, be open, right? Especially if you're going for an entry-level position. Be open to accepting maybe a challenge that you didn't really foresee, but be open to taking a position within a tech company to get your foot in the door. Not to say to be paid, you know, less, and that's not what I'm saying at all. But it may be something that's slightly different, that may be attractive, that you may not have thought about before. But apply for it. Try to get your foot in the door, because one of the things that I've learned working in tech is that tech companies, I mean, we have very good professional development and career paths for our employees. Once you get, the key is to get your foot into the door. And then there will be a lot more opportunities there for growth. So that first entry-level position, that may not be the greatest thing in the world or whatever you thought that you may do, but it may just give you another skill set, right? To bolster you and help your career moving forward. Okay. Wow, now we're getting to the tricky stuff. The unspoken tips, and then this is the stuff that's hush hush. People don't like to talk about it. But for anyone that knows me and has worked with me at Verizon, they know that I will tell it like it is. I have no shame in doing that. I'm old enough to just, you know, just be honest, right? And I've been asked that question, you know, why it's so difficult for Blacks and Hispanics to get into tech. And that's because a lot of us aren't told, you know, these next few tips that are really helpful. Number one is mentorship. I am fortunate that I've had mentors at all stages of my life. From when I was a young girl, I mean, no one in my family had ever gone into the tech world, right? But I was a little girl that had astronauts and rocket ships on her wall. I had mentors that took out time to help groom me from high school through college, trying to learn how to live and be a professional as someone with a visual disability, learning how to be expert at the technologies that I use, like screen readers and braille displays. And even now, to this day, my manager, he's not just my manager and my colleague, he's my mentor, right? So mentoring, finding people within tech that can mentor you or teach you some tips of the trade, or even if you can't find someone in tech to mentor you, get a mentor, find anyone, someone that's a professional that's working that may help steer you in the right direction, help you make those essential career decisions, because Blacks and Hispanics, we don't generally have mentors. And that is something that we, if there are mentoring programs out there, I encourage you to take full advantage. I've been a mentor myself. I believe in each one, teach one. There have been people who've helped guided me throughout the course of my life. And I've in turn done the same. And, I'm a better person because of that. I don't know all the answers. And a lot of young people, they think they know it all. You got your college degree, and no, it's always important to seek those that have lived more, that live longer, that have professional careers to help steer and guide you to where you want to go. Number two, and this is something that is so, relevant now. We live in a global environment. I'm in my 40s. So I'm from Gen X. I'm a Gen Xer. Okay. Now young people coming out of college, they're Gen Z. Our economies are totally different from when I graduated undergrad. In the 90s, the world was my oyster, right? There were affirmative action programs all over the place. It was so much money spent on professional development for minorities back then in this country. But now we live in a global environment. So you're not just competing with people that you sit next to every day, right, in your classroom. You're competing with a global community. You're competing with developers and engineers from India, Hong Kong, China, everywhere. And that's very different from when I, graduated undergrad. When I graduated from undergrad, my friends and I, we can walk off the job one day and get another one 2 days later. That is not the type of economy that we live in. And young people nowadays need to be cognizant of the fact that you're competing on a global stage. And if you look at the demographics in tech, that's a large reason why Blacks and Hispanics are not well represented in tech. 10, 15 years ago, there were more people, more Blacks and Hispanics in tech positions in Silicon Valley. But now we've opened it up. The tech world is open. These tech companies, they will go to India to hire, China, bring people in on visas. They're skilled workers. You're competing with skilled workers all over the world. So guess what? You have to find some way of differentiating yourself and making yourself stand out and making yourself more attractive as a candidate. But, the employment environment we live in now, this is you're not just competing with people here in the US, you're competing from a global pool of well-qualified applicants that you have to measure up to. Number three, it's very important to develop your online brand. And I will tell you, that's not something that I was always very much interested in doing. But it was my strategy professor, the last course that I took at Drexel for my MBA. She was the Black female. No one else would tell me what she told me as a Black professional. And I argued with her because I grew up in that age. Hey, you do everything the right way. I went and I got my MBA right. I have experience and, and she looked at me and she was like, what is your brand? You have to develop some type of strategy, some type of brand for yourself so that you're known. Develop your brand, develop your skill set, and continue to sharpen and hone it. And not just that, create your LinkedIn profile. Cultivate that online brand, because that's where our HR organizations, that's where our recruiters go to hire young people, to hire in tech. All the recruiters from tech are out there, Amazon, Facebook. I hear from them all. And it's very important to sharpen those skills on LinkedIn and to put your best foot forward and create your own brand. What is it that you stand for, right? What is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to break into? And that was something that I fought against because, my generation, we didn't have to do that. We would apply, submit a resume, get a call back, get the interview. I will dazzle you and charm you and get the job. Well, didn't work that way for me. Not at all. But it took, right? And this is where being willing to listen to others, right? I was a woman in my late 30s, early 40s when I heard that. But I knew that she was telling me the truth. No, things have changed. Yes, that's how you did it 20 years ago. That's not the type of economy that we live in now. Everything is online. You need to sharpen your brand and get out there. Post articles, connect with people that are in your industry, network online. That is a good way of breaking into tech because you never know what job you might find and what person may lead you there. And especially during this time of COVID, use LinkedIn. I get a lot of young people, a lot of kids that reach out to me on LinkedIn all the time. And it breaks my heart. Kids who their internships, gone down the tubes because of COVID. They're graduating with their degrees. They've done everything right, but now tech companies are on hiring freezes. During this time, this is the perfect time to sharpen those online skills, take different courses, get certifications, develop your brand, because now more than ever in the pandemic, you have to differentiate yourselves from other applicants. And this goes back to the whole LinkedIn thing. Also, don't be afraid to network online, with LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to do that. And this is a true story. Like I said, it took me a while to break into tech after I got my MBA. Like 4 years, I'm online, and like I said, I'm doing things the right way. And I would reach out to people, I would apply online through LinkedIn and other places. Some people would brush me off, they may connect with me, but it's like they really don't want to help, that sort of thing. So that happened to me a lot. So I stopped doing it. I just kind of backed off and I said, okay, well, I'm not going to reach out to people directly. I'm just going to work the LinkedIn site. I'll just work the recruiters, get in touch with the recruiters and kind of work them when I'm applying for positions. So lo and behold, I saw this position for Verizon Media, mobile app accessibility. And, it was one of those things, I saw this, I saw the, and I, being that I was already in the accessibility field, I was a freelance consultant, I knew that this team was just full of world-renowned leaders in accessibility, people that have patents, people that help create household, tech devices that people use every single day. And I said, I'm going to give it a shot, right? I'm just going to give this a shot. And for me, that was something super serious because the position was in Sunnyvale and I'm in Atlanta. And I'm like, there's no tech in Atlanta. I'm just going to put it out there. So I applied for the position. And with LinkedIn, when you're applying for a position online, they actually will show you anyone within your network that works for that company. And it was a name that popped up. My first connection was this guy named Larry Goldberg. And it gives you the option of kind of like letting them know, hey, that you're interested, you're getting ready to apply for this position. And I thought about it and I was like, we've never met in person. It was somebody I always wanted to meet because I've seen him at conferences, speaking at conferences, always wanted to meet him. So I passed, right? I just kind of skipped that step. Went through the hiring, just go through the hiring process, not even going to reach out. So when the recruiter, when she set up my phone interview, it was with Larry Goldberg. And so that leads me to that point, is that it never hurts to reach out. Now, when I had my phone interview, I never disclosed that. I never disclosed that I was an admirer. I never disclosed that, I should have reached out to him. I didn't let him know that until months after I was hired, right? Like just how closely, our paths had crossed. Like we had been in the same conferences, everything, right? And this was the guy that did my phone interview that I never bothered to reach out to because I was afraid of rejection. Take it as a lesson learned from me. The worst anyone can do is just not respond, right? The best they can do is to respond and help, right? It's like that 50-50 chance. Either it will help you or not. If they don't, at least you can say that you tried. And I let the baggage that I had, I let my experiences from people who had these unconscious biases and just outright bigotry against hiring me, I let all that get in my way, thinking that he's just probably like everyone else, right? Take it from me, it's a lesson learned. Reach out, network. You see someone online, you see someone on LinkedIn that's where you want to be, it's nothing wrong with reaching out and saying, hello, can you steer me? Can you guide me in the right direction? So that's a great lesson that you need to learn right now. It will help you out tremendously. Use LinkedIn, don't be afraid to network. I get kids that reach out to me all the time. Sometimes I can help, I'll do my best. I will send out resources, but it also amazes me, reflecting on the people that do reach out. I have never, right, in 2 years, and well, not even going even further than that, I've never had a Black or Hispanic reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask for help. Never. Take that as a lesson. If you want to get into tech, you want to break through, right? You can't be afraid of rejection. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and ask for help, because others do it and they get the job. They get the jobs because they reach out. I've helped people get jobs because they reach out. I've steered kids in the right direction because they've reached out. If you don't ask, you're not going to get an answer, right? So take it from me. I've lived it myself. Don't be afraid to ask for help or connect with people, because you will never imagine the doors that may open. And the interesting connection with, Larry and I, he was my phone interview. So he wasn't the hiring manager. Lo and behold, last year, Larry became my manager. That person that I wanted to reach out to, but didn't, over time, he became my manager, my colleague, and I can call him my mentor as well. So don't be afraid to take that leap of faith and to reach out to someone that just may help steer you in the right direction. So in summary, you know, there's a lot of opportunity there. You know, I think this discussion, breaking into tech, is a very good discussion to have right now, because I can tell you, and I'm sure Jason can, and many of the other speakers that you've probably had have probably discussed this as well. There is a full-scale movement in the tech to try to hire a more diverse population. They realized it. They understand it. They get it, right? You know, typically, like what we have now as far as quote minorities is generally Chinese and Indian. They know that they have got to get better. They know that they have got to hire more Blacks and more Hispanics. So this is why I'm saying that there are barriers there. Okay, you can't legislate people's hearts and minds, right? All you can do is put your best foot forward and represent yourself in a manner to get respect from others and to at least get your foot into the door. But tech companies are a lot more cognizant right now. There's a lot of planning being done within the industry to try to increase representation amongst you know, Blacks and Hispanics. So take advantage of those opportunities. Like I said, it's not going to be easy with COVID. A lot of tech companies are still under a hiring freeze. But they are a lot more open right now than they have been in a very long time. And so please, you know, use that as an advantage. The last thing that I want to say before I turn it over to questions, and I know I've been talking for a while, is you know, Verizon Media, we have accessibility labs across the country. I have since left Sunnyvale. I'm back on the East Coast. I'm in the DC area now. We have an accessibility lab in Sunnyvale in the Bay Area. We have one here out in the DC area in Dulles, Virginia. We have one in New York City. We open our labs to nonprofits, other organizations, even other companies to learn about accessibility and learn about the types of techniques that we teach our product teams. One of the things that I love to do, you know, when I was in Sunnyvale was to meet with young people, to show them around campus, show them the lab, and teach them about accessibility. Because within the tech world, that is definitely a way of being, you know, of actually differentiating yourself. Everyone, you know, and we stress this within Verizon Media, everyone has a role to play within accessibility. You don't have to be a developer or engineer. Even if you're in marketing or social media, learning how to post, make posts that are accessible using alt tag descriptions and accessible PDFs, things like that. Those are things that will help differentiate you throughout your career. And that's one of the things that I would hope that someone takes away from that. Take it from me, you know, try to help get, you know, find some skill to help differentiate yourselves. And accessibility is always a good tool to have because it affects so much of our life. Even if you're going into HR, guess what? You need to know about accessibility. You know, you have to know the laws and rules and regulations behind, you know, the Americans with Disabilities Act and all those other things that regulate hiring practices. If you're a developer or engineer, you need to know how to code apps and websites to support assistive technologies, as well as the needs of seniors and people with cognitive disabilities. So user experience design, that's also something where I've seen kids that go into UX, they're using accessibility as that extra feather in their cap. And one of the things I would also like to say, I would love it, you know, if the kids from Village Connect reach out, like once our campus is open, you know, I or my colleague, we would love to host you all in the Sunnyvale lab, you know, when campus is open. So you get to see what the lab is like and how we work with product teams and making sure that our apps and websites are accessible. So at this time, I want to turn it over and ask, you know, if anyone has any questions for me.
Wow. I just have to say, wow. Your
Oh, ditto,
presentation,
wow.
so rich, so rich. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Miss Ivy.
I just said I'll ditto, wow. Valuable information, great information. I especially like the part about mentorship and tutoring, that sort of thing. It's so important. And we don't take advantage of mentoring.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and I am so inspired. I really appreciate you integrating your personal story
Mhm.
into your presentation. I know quite often people come and they give you the technical, they give you, what's happening, but you came in and you really shared the struggle of an African American woman, and you spoke very frankly about your experiences, and you didn't pull any punches, and I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure that anybody who watches this video moving forward is also going to appreciate your frankness. And I could tell you a no nonsense woman. and, and don't
Yes.
play. So you better bring
Yes.
your A game if you're dealing with Kasiah.
Yes.
Don't play with me. Um, and let me say before I failed to say it is I really want to take you up on that offer of partnering and being able to bring some young people to your
Yeah.
site so that they can, one of the biggest issues is exposure, I find, for a lot of the young people that we work with. Out of sight, out of mind. If they can't see it, they don't believe it exists.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, the way they communicate, it's like that's those other people. And those other people are doing those things, but not me. Uh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I
I
just want
totally
to just
agree.
confirm, and I'm gonna let Miss Ivy talk. Is those 3 points that you covered what you need to know? Mentorship, uh,
Mhm.
how competitive it is, and you're
Right.
competing with a huge market of people who
Yeah.
are vying for those same positions.
Yeah.
And then lastly is to create an online brand for yourself and what that looks like. And that
Mhm.
ties into the work that we do at Village Connect, because we do a lot of work around identity,
Mhm.
around visioning, and
Mhm.
remaking culture and remaking, who you are. Because
Right.
we have been, as African Americans and Black people, we've been fed um, a story about who we are, and
Yes.
and what we really strive to do is help people understand. It's imperative that you change that story. Nobody's going to change it for you, but that story has
Exactly.
been embedded in your mind. It's been embedded in your subconscious,
Right.
and we often fall victim to that story.
Right.
So
And
I,
that's something that keeps me moving too, because I think about everyone is not going to have as thick of a skin as me, right?
right.
And I think about when the people that told me no, and that there are so many, especially kids, young people, they hear that no, right? And that's it for them.
Mhm.
Right.
That's right.
And that totally bothers me. And I tell people all the time, you have to watch what you tell, what you speak to these young people. All right.
Mm.
And because not even color, like the reason I wanted to become an electrical engineer when I was in the 6th grade was because this tall blonde lady came over and saw this little fat, chubby girl standing in front of a science fair backboard. And I got honorable mention. But she came to me and she said, most girls don't do this, right? Don't take apart tape recorders. And I know, kids now like, what's a tape recorder?
Yeah. Right.
But, I like to take things apart. And, you know, and she explained that she took the time and explained to me, and, you know, we don't, you know, a lot of people, nobody else, none of the other judges came to me. But this lady took the time to explain to me why I didn't get hired. But she told me, she said, you know what, if you really like this, you should become an electrical engineer when you grow up. Because she said, you know, it's not a lot of girls. And then I just looked there, I was like, well, that's all you have to tell me, right? Because, you know, I was a tomboy, whatever they can do, I can do better.
That's right.
But it was her putting that spark. You know, my parents, yeah, sure. You know, my dad got his college degree when I was an undergrad. My mom was the first one to graduate in my family. My roots are very Southern. I was born in Southern Mississippi, right? So I didn't grow up with a whole slew of professionals, right? But there were people along the way that lit a spark, right? My parents didn't know that direction. You know, they just knew whatever I showed interest, hey, right? But that lady, when she looked at me and said, you know what, you should be an engineer. After that, I applied to science, math, and technology schools, went on, you know what I mean? And the rest is history. We have to watch what we speak and how we speak to these young people.
Yes.
We speak life. If you speak life, you give life, right? You feed on that. But if you speak something negative, right, and you tell them what they cannot do, right? You know, you're dimming that hope before they even have a chance.
Could you speak a little bit more also about the global environment? Because I think that's so important for people to know that they're not competing only with Americans in the United States.
Right.
They're competing globally. They have to know
Yes.
something about the outside world. They need to travel.
Yes. Yeah.
Or at least read about the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tough. You know, I'm in that position. I have a soon to be 12-year-old on Sunday. So she hears it from me a lot too, because I look at her and she's growing up very different from what I did. You know, I thought me going to a diverse, you know, I mean, it was diverse, but it was still predominantly Black, but we had very good like science and tech programs at the time in the DC area. Now she's, you know, growing up truly in this global environment, right? Because yes, online, if you, and I'll just be honest with you, like on LinkedIn, the people that reach out to me most are Indians.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
They're the ones that look at my bios and say, that's somebody that can help me here and from India. Most of the Indians that connect with me, they're back in India, right? And this is the thing, and this started, you know, a long time ago. When I used to work back in the consulting world, you had a lot of companies back then, they started outsourcing. That was when a lot of the multinational companies started to move in to developing, you know, countries like India and China. But now it's to the nth degree, to the point where they're just not, you know, taking jobs, you know, over there. They're coming here as well. So that's why I say we can't be comfortable. You know, 10, 15 years ago, like literally in Sunnyvale, I lived out there, it's less than 2% Black, Silicon Valley.
It's true.
I could walk around, and this was something, and I'll be very frank. I experienced things there that I didn't think that I would experience. Mm-hmm. Because I saw us all as, quote, people of color. Mm-hmm. So when I looked at the demographics, it didn't bother me that was less than 2% Black. Mm-hmm. That didn't bother me, you know, because I had always been
who you were,
the only one. You know what I mean? I'd always been the only girl, the only Black in tech and engineering. But it was very different from, say, here on the East Coast, right? Where it's a lot more diversity. Silicon Valley is not diverse.
That's true.
Because they have, and so that's kind of the caveat. Just because you hire Indians and Chinese, that doesn't make you diverse, right? Because if you're excluding us, that's not diversity. And I don't fault people for taking advantage of their opportunities. We need to do the same. Wherever there are, we need to do the same. And that's why I stress we're competing on a global stage. China is a powerhouse now. When I left undergrad, when I graduated from Florida A&M, China was not a powerhouse. Right? It wasn't. India was not a powerhouse as far as producing developers and engineers. Now they are. And so we have to be cognizant of that. And we have to make sure that we're representing ourselves in the best manner. And we are getting over our hangups. And like I said, we're getting over our frustrations and really pursuing and going after what it is we want. Because they do. And I don't fault anyone, right? From coming over here that came from nothing, who gets a visa and comes and make a life for themselves. That is the American dream. Everyone wants that, right? It's just that it's tougher now. We have to fight more for it. And now, like I said, with everything that's been going on with social justice, more now so than last year, the opportunities are here. We just need to make sure and give our kids the tools and the knowledge so that they can get that confidence to go after and compete, because that's what it's going to take if they really want to get into tech.
I'd like to pose a question, but before that, a statement from your previous comment. One of the things that Village Connect also does is we also do work around racial reconciliation. And so we have an intensive that we offer for white folks. And it's called Free Yourself First. But with the realm of that particular workshop series, excuse me, one of the things that I often state in the very beginning is, given in a scenario, I grew up in a pizza parlor. And so I have an inkling for people who eat pizza. And that don't make me wrong. And so, it's a human nature to want to be with and be around people who look like you and act like you and enjoy the same things. With that said, I guess my question is, because there are so few Blacks in the tech industry, is there any type of effort underway, or does it exist, where Blacks have created an association to support other Blacks who want to get into the field or that type of thing? Does that exist?
There are some organizations, but dealing with tech is really going to be, like tech heavy, right? For example, National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE, that's another good one. And last I checked, Verizon Media, we do sponsor NSBE. They're found on college campuses for kids, and it's not just open for engineers, but it's students who are in engineering, but also computer science or different type of tech majors. That's a good way of getting started. But for other disciplines, that's a harder question, right? Because when you think tech, like I said, most of the jobs are going to be developers or engineers, or whatever it is. But even when it gets to like marketing and creative, it's still kind of like a tech focus. But that's the one organization that I know, really does kind of strive towards it. There are others, ACM, the American, I think is, ACM is a computing society. That's for like kind of the scientific type as well, like for computer science. But yeah, most of those organizations that are going to have that beeline kind of connection to tech, they're still going to be heavy, you know, tech disciplines, if that makes sense.